from Israel.
My name is Amit Soussana. I speak before you today as a survivor of the brutal Hamas terror attack on Israel that occurred on October 7, 2023. My life, once simple and quiet, was shattered when I was taken hostage by this ruthless terror group. I worked as an attorney in an office that I truly loved, rented a small house in the kibbutz, and my biggest concern, like most people, was deciding what to have for dinner. My daily routine mainly involved spending time with my friends and family and taking care of my cats. I stayed away from social media and I was a very private person. My privacy was and still is very important to me. I remember the day of my abduction vividly. It began as a peaceful Saturday morning, a holiday in Israel. But the tranquility was shattered by the sound of thousands of missiles launching from Gaza, followed by the terrifying approach of heavy gunfire. I barricaded myself in my safe room, my body trembling from fear. The moment a hand grenade exploded in my living room, my home was invaded by heavily armed men in civilian clothing. I was in my pajamas, barefoot, and decided to take the blanket from my bed to cover myself up. I was dragged from my burning house to the Gaza Strip border, beaten severely along the way. It felt as though they were taking pleasure out of hurting me. They even touched my private body parts while I tried to resist them. I resisted them, though I knew that this might lead to my death. But at that point, I was willing to die. I feared for my body and soul more than I feared for my life. So I fought back. My entire face and body were bruised and swallowed. My eye socket was broken, and I sustained a knee injury from which I still suffer from. I was held captive alone, chained by my ankle with a metal chain, unable to move, and had to ask for permission to use the bathroom. In that house, I was sexually assaulted by the Hamas terrorist who had guarded me. He forced me to go to the shower and entered the room, pointed his gun at me. He was breathing heavily and had a monstrous beast-like face. He meticulously planned his assault, scheming and waiting for the moment to have his way. He kept asking me private sexual questions while sitting next to me in his underwear, lifting my shirt, touching me, and constantly asking me when my period would be over. I knew exactly what he was planning to do, and yet I couldn't do anything to prevent it. I was utterly helpless. When the assault was over, I wasn't even allowed to cry or to be sad. I had no one to comfort me and was forced to act nice to the person who had just sexually assaulted me in the most horrifying way. Not a day goes by that I don't think about what that terrible man did to me, but I keep reminding myself that I'm free now and that he can't hurt me again. A few days later, I was transferred to a new location with different heavily armed Hamas terrorists guarding me. Even though I was terrified, I felt fortunate that at least I wasn't with the man who sexually violated me, because I knew that if I had stayed with him, he would do it again. In the new location, I was tortured, hung upside down, beaten, humiliated, and feared for my life. Eventually, I was taken into an underground tunnel, 40 meters deep, a tomb-like space where we felt as if we were buried alive. We were held in such inhumane conditions. No person should ever be subjected to such brutal and ruthless treatment. After 2 agonizing months, I was freed, but I do not feel free, not while others remain in captivity, enduring the same nightmare. We, the hostages, made a promise to one another. If any of us were released, we would never stop fighting until all were free. Today, I honor this promise by telling my story, no matter how painful it is to relive those horrors. As difficult as it is for me to speak out, it is far more difficult to stay silent. Now that I have regained my freedom, regained my voice, I have decided I cannot stay silent, and I must speak about the horrific crimes that we know that are still occurring there to innocent women and men. I cannot stay silent because of my promise, but also because of the overwhelming silence, even denial of the atrocities that have happened and continue to happen to all the hostages still trapped in Gaza for 383 agonizing days. In January, I met with Ms. Patton and her team, sharing my ordeal with them in detail. She vowed she would never give up on securing the release of the hostages, and she kept her promise. Now, I speak before the UN Security Council, pleading with you to fulfill your duty. Take immediate action to secure the release of those still held captive. Every day that passes steals another piece of their soul and endangers their life. Act now before it is too late. I urge you, do not turn a blind eye to the atrocities being committed against innocent civilians. It is your responsibility to protect human rights, to combat terrorism, and to bring those responsible for these heinous crimes to justice. The world is watching, waiting for the UN Security Council to live up to its mandate. I beg you, do not fail us. Secure the freedom of the hostages and ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate. Remember, it is our collective duty to combat terrorism and protect human rights. The time to act is now. Thank you.